So here we are. Welcome to HumanAF, a podcast that I am just kicking off. So thank you, Michelle, for being one of my very first people, where unfiltered conversations and exploration wants to happen around the human experience and what the F we're doing here. And with that being said, we just need to set the room. And you were asking earlier, Michelle was asking if swearing was allowed, and swearing is real because it's about real people, real life, and unfiltered. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question or the opportunity here is for us to side by side explore big questions. And here's the piece that I really want to make very clear: to like humble ourselves, knowing that there's no one answer. There's answers, there's perspectives, there's thoughts. And I really want to know what you need. So what I need to really fully be here is to understand that our perspectives are limited, period. They're biased, they're all sorts of things. And I think that's really hard for people to step out and talk about real life, because we live in a society right now where when you say one thing that of course is from your current perspective that is going to be like limited, that all the jackals and the wolves want to come out and say, well, you're not aware of this and you're not aware of that. And it's like, of course we're not. So of course we're not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that takes us off the hook of being accountable for what we say and what we miss. We're gonna miss shit. Like, I just need us to be able to have a free conversation in the not knowing, and only drawing from what we're aware of and what we know, and being curious about what we aren't seeing. Like, that's to me the best we can do in order for this to be what it's meant to be, which
100%.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I just completely agree with that. And it's just the freedom to be able to express your own experience and not putting it on somebody else, just offering it up as, hey, this is my experience. I'm not telling you what to do. This was just my experience. So having that freedom to just be able to do that and have that understood by you and whoever's listening, that I'm not, I might share my experience, but that's just it. My experience. It's only my experience, and yours might be completely different. So yeah, but yeah, I always feel I have permission anyway with you. So I'm not too worried about being real, but yeah, there you go.
This is the thing. 'Cause like, open up the comments section. It's like, oh crap, like I didn't think about that, or I didn't see that. Oh, and we can get hit with this gut punch of like, I should have known, or I should have had all my bases covered. How are we ever supposed to have that? And to me, that's real.
Yeah.
Like, I think then it just, I think, yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about there. That's probably an episode on its own, but that's what I need to do this.
Like, you got it, sister. You got it.
So for those of you that are new to me, my name is Karen Livingstone. I've been I'm a certified life coach, and I've been doing coaching, and what's deepened into like a very intuitive based coaching around life, loss, and all the WTFs in between. And I essentially feel like the work I do now is around untangling the knots that kind of are inside of us and in our relationships. Why? Like, so we can be here more fully, so we can be here more real, so we can have basically a very full experience. So this entire podcast is based on that premise that I think we're here to have a full experience, that it's not about good, bad, right, or wrong. It's about even paying attention and really being here in the most, here's the thing, listen to this, the most clearest and whatever, like we're always going to be clouded in some way. So I guess it's to be present with everything that's available to us here. So that's what I'm doing. And I established a program called Daring to Suck. And that's going to be woven into these talks, because it's something that helped me step out of fearful-based communicating, fearful-based living, to give myself permission to fail, so to speak, or to do it even badly, if only to just say, well, I'm good at that, or I'm not good at that, and I'm learning. So segue into our conversation today. Why you and I are having this conversation, because you're a teacher and here for learning. So we'll talk a bit more about that, because that's very cool. But you actually wanted to talk about some stuff that I think is very relevant, which is about like the learning that we know we're here to learn. And I could capture, I think, a lot of what we want to talk about today in a sentence that one of my clients said the other day. A woman I work with, she was like, listen, I get it. Like, we're here to learn. We're here to do the learning. And she was like, I was like, yeah, let's go. And she goes, but like, I've learned a lot. All right. Like, I've learned enough already. And when does the success part happen? Like, when does okay. So that's what's a coming for anyone listening. And I want to, on that note, introduce my friend and someone that is so immersed in learning and the learning process with humans, with small humans on the planet, Michelle McIntosh. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's exciting.
What do you need to be here, like the way you want to be here?
I will echo what you said, full permission to be able to offer my perspective and just have it taken as just that, my perspective. I don't know it all. I definitely don't. I haven't, I know I haven't stopped learning. So just the freedom to be able to say, this is my experience. And that's it really. I mean, I already, like I said, I already feel like I have permission just to be with you anyway. So I feel pretty good right now. So I'm good.
So the other thing you asked last night, it was like, can we be like shonky or jackass?
Oh yeah. Can we be jackasses? Cause I like to be a jackass sometimes. So
what does a jackass mean for you? Being a jackass?
I don't know, making faces. Right? Like
being dorky. Yeah. Just being ourselves,
being yourself. And I think that's, that I would say encompasses our friendship, our relationship from the get-go, I would say. So yeah.
This is one of these, this is a kickoff. This is one of the kickoff episodes of this journey of HumanAF, and how we meet, like how people meet fascinates me. Like how humans meet humans, why we're interested in them, how we get together, and then what we look at my hands, and then what we do together. Little soul to soul makeout session. Yummy. And yeah, like how we fit, and how some just like missed high five. Like, it's just like, so I'll tell we're going to be going back and forth on this story. So this is tune your ear to like how people meet and what's possible, like what is possible and where the missed high fives happen. So I met you, this is our 10-year anniversary. Like,
is it really? Holy shit balls.
10 years ago, a little synopsis or a little summary of where I was at. My life had essentially fallen apart. I'd lost a job. I'd lost like all of our income. I'd lost 6 figures of borrowed money. Like we were so in the hole, it wasn't even funny. But I also had 2 kids at that point, a miscarriage, in the beginning. Like, it was a mess. So I was in the rocky comeback mode of realizing I could do something about my situation. And I was pointed to the profession of coaching that took me away from what I was doing, which was like professional communication and marketing in like the energy sector, which I find very funny. So like solar to like human energy. Anyway, the point is I found coaching, sitting in training, and we were in a circle format. And at one point in like the very first weekend, they're like, all right, find a partner. And my eyes caught your eyes. And we did one of these
literally across from the room. Like it wasn't like we were beside each other. Oh, it's just convenient. Literally across from the room. It's like, dunk. And then we went, and we just kind of did this. Yeah. And that was it. That was it. And then we were paired up.
Well, that wasn't it, because then
exactly.
Yes. Then what happened was we did this dyad, so coachy, right? Coach training, and newbies not knowing what the F we're doing and just so friggin' eager And you'll notice I'll go from swearing to saying frigging. I don't know why I choose to say the F word here or there and not in other places. But we sat together and the whole point was like, get your client. So one plays client, one plays coach. And it's like, just like start talking and like find the thing or something that you're supposed to coach on. And Michelle says, I think I coached you first or something.
I don't even remember. I just remember coaching you, not knowing anything about what I was doing. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're okay.
So I think I don't know if we got somewhere with you, but it felt like we got somewhere. And it was like, okay, I get that, like, here's the thing, and let's just talk about it more, get the client to talk about it more, start creating some just movement there. And then it came to my turn. Go ahead.
So I think because this was literally I don't think we'd ever coached before. I think
No, it was
it
the
was the
first
first time. So all I think I knew was like ask an open-ended question. So I asked an open question.
So she was like, so what do you want to coach about? Or like, how is that? And I was like,
Yeah,
everything's good. Everything's fine. Like, just,
totally.
my perspective was completely like, I couldn't tap into anything that was adverse because I had been on a ride, on a journey of upward motion. And I was essentially at the top of the mountain, which, by the way, in coaching terms, that's not a bad thing. We just were ill-equipped with like, ill-equipped or societally trained of like, it's got to be a bad thing. We've got to go into the bad part. And so I essentially said it was all okay, turning me into Teflon. And so you were like, I got nothing to hang on to. I'm like, okay. And we just had this really weird, like, and like, there was nothing kind of real about it. And I was like, and you could see I was kind of like, I don't know what's like, I was almost lost in it a little bit. Like, anyway, then ding, the buzzer goes and we're like, and you were just, I could tell you were like, I either suck at this or what the fuck was that? And I'm in over my head, or like, I don't know what is happening.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I don't know what just happened. And I was still in this, like, I want to say false, but it wasn't, but I was in a facade kind of place because it was true. I felt good. I felt like I'd had all these achievements. So I was at the top of a mountain, but at the same time, I just couldn't kind of go deeper for whatever reason. And then they're like, all right, go back to your seats. And I was like, oh, okay, bye. Like, it probably felt like one of the most inauthentic conversations I've ever had. So, and being like empathetic and like tuned in, and me not totally knowing all of that at that point, not with this clarity that I have now, but like, I was like, something, as my friend Angie would say, something fucky just happened. Like,
Totally.
something fucky just happened and I can't put my finger on it. And I went back and I sat down and I just felt like out of my body, like, what just happened? I was looking over you and I could just, the more time went on, I just felt like, that was bad. Like, that wasn't okay. That wasn't me. I was so confused. I couldn't shake it. And then at the first breaker, it was at the end of the day or something. What happened?
I think it was the next day, actually.
No, I wouldn't know.
Are you
It was
sure?
not. I am 100% sure.
Oh, maybe I'm
Because,
wrong. Yeah,
it was within the day because it was actually, I think, the moment they broke the debrief circle from that
maybe. Yeah.
exercise.
Well,
Because it was like lunch. And I was like,
and you came up to me, you're like, I don't know what just happened, but I just like, I can't even remember exactly what you said, but I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God she said that, because I was like, I was like, maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I just, what?
I felt it. And I was like, all I knew, in my body kept building up. And as soon as they said, all right, break for lunch, I was like, I was like, I have to, because I couldn't have it in my body. I didn't even know I didn't know what I was going to say other than just admit my shit, which, by the way, ended up becoming a part of the daring to suck process. And I was like, I don't know what just happened, but that felt really messed up. And like, I'm sorry. And you were like, no, I'm sorry. I was like, no, like, you're the two empaths. No, I'm sorry. No, I love you. No, I love you.
Yeah, exactly.
And we were just like, just being in the real, though, in that moment of like, I don't know what that was. Am I really screwed up? Like, and you were just like, no, it wasn't me. I was like, no, it wasn't you. So we were like two empaths trying to make things right. Is like so hilarious because we're like, no, it was my fault. No, it's my, we're like, all right, let's hug it out, new friend. And and we just, so our relationship literally started on cleaning shit out, like being in the real.
Mhm.
And so how appropriate is it that you're helping me open these conversations up? And you're going to be a repeat guest because Michelle is one of the funniest people I know. And we have so many hilarious things that we talk about. We have a lot in common. We both lost our fathers. You lost him a lot earlier than me,
Mhm.
and through illness, and mine was through sudden death. But like Michelle was really there for me and really helped join the club, which no one wants to be a part of. And I was very close with my father. And so we've been on that journey together, raising kids for the last 10 years. You're a few years ahead of me with the teens. And yeah, like the sisterhood that you've offered me and just the sounding board we've had between each other has just been invaluable. So
Me too.
I like what you do. So that being said, I want to hear about why you want to talk about this and like what your journey is with the learning process around that gist of like, I get we're here to learn and.
Yeah, no, I get we're here to learn, and I think I've often thought that I was put on this earth to learn and to never stop learning. And I fully still believe that. I don't ever want to stop learning. But and my past has been I grew up in an emotionally absent world, really. And so I really didn't know, for the longest time, I didn't know who I was. And so I just went on this quest to learn who I was. Consequently, I took coach training. I took, and I took coaching. I had a coach myself, and that was life changing, which brought me to coach training. I've done therapy. I've done all kinds of things to find answers, to figure out who I am. And what I realized, so after years of that, and I mean, I did a lot of work, a lot of emotional work, from sitting on my kitchen floor screaming, writing letters to people I needed to write letters to, like, you name it. I'd done so much work. And I know I'm never done, but I got to a point, and it's so weird. And this by no means is a slight on any profession whatsoever. But I got to a point, and this was probably about 2 or 3 years ago. I went to a naturopath looking for answers for something. I don't even know what it was. Anyway, and this is so weird. It sounds like it's probably not related, but it sent me on a weird path, because it was like, this person sent me with 13 supplements, and I had this bag, this giant bag full of all these pills, and I'm going, and I was like, I gotta count these, and I'm like, 13 different supplements, and I'm like, this can't be right. Like, I just, all of a sudden, there was a moment where I went, this doesn't feel right, and that was a moment where I went, I gotta stop this. I have to stop looking outwards for answers,
Mhm.
if that makes any sense.
It totally does.
And I think that was it was just like this clear moment of clarity where I went, I need to stop. And so I stopped. I went onto my social media, and I turned off. I can't even tell you how many things I unsubscribed from, how many things I stopped listening to, I just stopped it all. And so I think this is where I'm in this place now. I'm kind of still in that place a little bit. I'm dipping my toe in more, but I'm still like, so I'm in this weird place of trying to find my own compass, and it's weird, and it's hard, and it's like I almost feel bad, and I'm like, am I doing the right, like, it's a weird place. So I don't know if it was a personal growth burnout. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I just thought it was something that would be cool to explore. I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced it, because that was my
Yeah.
experience, and that's kind of where the world I'm living in now, like, I'm really, really, every time I try and I go to read something, I'm like, do I want to do this? Am I ready for this? Do I want it? So I really have to just stop, because before anything anyone threw at me, yep, I'll do it. Yep, yep. oh, we're doing these weird breathing things at this weird thing, and we're going to go sit in a tub for 12, I don't know, come. And I'd be like, sure, I'll do it. I'll do anything. And like, it didn't matter what people said. I'd be like, yep, I'll do it. And now I'm not in that place anymore. And so it's a weird place. Yeah. That was a long-winded answer.
No, it wasn't. It's like, I just feel like people are like, yes, speak it, Michelle. Yes. Like, part two, like, because
Yeah.
it's, and I wrote something recently about it, and like, I'm just like trying to remember what I wrote because it's around this, because I was talking to somebody, and I was like, Jesus, we need to talk about this. This whole, I'm tired of feeling like I need to work on myself constantly. Getting sucked into believing you need to fix or do more or seek harder. So then it's not even about the external stuff. And fix what's broken in your life, where it leads to what I call soul level exhaustion, where we're actually almost doubling down on the essence of not enough. Not only is the work we're doing not enough, like we're not enough within that, even if like, especially when it's even unspoken, it's in the actions that we're sending the message. And it's like always seeking, always leaning in, always something, and like enough already.
Yeah.
There's an insidiousness to it. And yet it's something we're sold on the daily. Like, where else can I look? And yeah, you learn the lesson, dig deeper, affirm more, meditate harder. Like, no one's saying meditate, but it feels like that. I'm never doing enough to be the rightest person on the planet, like the bestest or the rightest.
Yeah.
So with the best intentions, we end up sending the message that we're like this never ending source. So that here it is, that we are the never ending source of the pain that we feel.
Totally.
So it's like, without knowing it, we diminish our spirit and we break our own heart in the process, not knowing it. Never doing enough or being enough. And I'm like, just like, enough. And that's like, no more. And that's why I'm so happy we're having this conversation, because I want to help untangle that so that we can be here fully, no matter where we're at on the spectrum of learning. Whether we first start out and there's all this like low, exciting hanging fruit. The low hanging fruit is like the most exciting, because you start to see traction. And then that's the thing. Oh, I feel a bit of relief. I'm in, I'm in for this.
Yeah.
And then what do we do as humans? We grab onto form, we get excited, and we fuck with it. Like we just I think spirit's like, oh, you guys, like I said, we only human better when we know and understand ourselves better. Now that's different than working on ourselves. Like, seeking understanding or acceptance is very different than, yeah.
And I think tuning in, I hate that term. I just hate it so much. But like,
Paying
I think
attention.
the best way I describe it was when I said finding my own, like listening to my own compass, and just even finding out what that looks and feels like is a weird, especially when you grew up like I did, where I didn't know who the hell I was, and I didn't know who I wanted or what I wanted, who I wanted. Honestly, people would say, oh, you'd be good at that. Okay. Oh, you'd be good doing that. Okay. Like I would just follow.
Oh, you see me? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So just quieting yourself enough, turning off the noise. And I do meditate now. But I also read. I also read just snippets. And I'm reading a book by Mark Nepo. And he talks about he was drawing this comparison to realizing that the sun never stops shining, even though there's clouds, even though there's shit in the way, even though it's raining, the sun's there. And he says it's the same with your spirit. It's like all the noise and all the stuff and all the books and all the retreats and all the things are there, But do you know that your spirit underneath all of that is still there, just waiting and just shining regardless? And I love that comparison because I that resonated with me because I felt like I had to turn off all that other stuff to get with my own spirit and who I was as a person, which was super valuable to me. But again, it's a weird place to be in because it's like what you constantly have to just tune in.
Hey, I like the word pay attention better. Like,
Yeah, pay attention is
because
good.
it's
Yeah.
not just, it's like yeah, because tuning in is kind of like how we got started. Like, so excited, I'm tuning in instead of tuning
Yeah.
out. And
Yeah.
like, and then we see how that has actually hurt us over time innocently. Like tuning into the eager part. Like there are these eager parts
Mhm.
in us. Like you spoke, oh yeah, like I'm here for the like the it almost feels like soul level because the soul is literally, in my experience, it's like I'm here for the whole thing, like of course, and like so
Mhm.
so that's the one that's here to soak it all up like a sponge. At the expense of what though? So there's other parts of you that it bumped up against, that the learning how that like unadulterated, like opening up the bandwidth to say
Yeah.
it all. I mean, this will be another, I think, podcast, but a mutual teacher of ours, Chris Durkees, who I will definitely be having in these first, handful of episodes, if he says yes, because maybe he will, I hope he does, which is around, he showed me that we're in relation. He showed me in a new way that essentially we're in relationship with everything.
Mhm.
So we're in relationship with our soul and the we, I don't even know, like there's consciousness in there. I don't even know. I don't want to talk circularly, but like we're in relationship with the parts of us, the one that is here to learn. And we're in relationship to the other parts, the ones that don't see, the ones that would rather lie on the couch, the ones that just want to go back
Yeah.
and like be in I don't know land. I don't want to know anymore. This is too hard. Right. And each one represents values and things like that, so we can get curious about that for sure, like to help break up the cement, so to speak, which keeps us in a pattern sometimes. But he was saying to me, like, talking about creativity. So he was talking, this is a very specific conversation about creativity, and he was like, it was in the middle of a meditation or some visualization he was helping me and some other people move through, and he was like, all right, so there's a dial between you, and like a dial, 0 to 10.
Yeah.
And we're all supposed to be sitting there in like a meditative kind of visualization state. And every fiber in my being was like, there's a dial. Like, I was like, there's a dial. What? What? Like, I was so mad. And like, I don't know why. I was just like, oh God. And he was like, notice what number yours is at. And I was like, 11. Like, we're
11.
spinal tapping this shit over here. Like, I'm dating myself, but like, look it
You
up.
can't turn it down? What?
How dare, what? I am 30, 40, whatever years old, like this whole time. And then I felt like a movie, like this whole time, Sally Field, like
Yeah.
what is it? Mrs. Doubtfire, this whole time, like, oh my God, like just, oh my God. And then, luckily, and I got to see my relationship with how I saw creativity, how I saw, the dial, and it was like smoke was coming out of the amps, like it was like this thing that the tires were spinning and there was smoke everywhere waiting for it to go. And so there can be parts of us that are so keen to learn, there's nothing wrong with it, but if we don't pay attention to like our relationship to it and how we let things just take over, we'll be off kilter, like.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, when you tune into the part that was like, I'm here to soak up all the things and like drink it all up. Like what do you sense about that part? What's important to it? What does it love about learning? What's it here for? I think it's got like a voice.
I think it's an innocent thing. It's like I feel like it's this innocent child going, yeah, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, yeah, I'm in. It's innocent, but and it's all in the name of I'm here to learn. all in the name of I'm here to learn. But I think somewhere
Ooh.
along the way, it got toxic,
They
or
want
it
us to
got,
stop the bus. They're like, stop the bus, get off
yeah,
here for a minute. So
yeah,
let's get to that energy, tune into that energy and come along everybody with us. Cause this is what we're going to do here. This is
yeah,
so good. I love it. Thank you, Michelle. Mwah. Is like, I'm here to learn. Now let's open up the
yeah.
door of learning, and learning means,
Learning means
what does it look like in through your eyes? Learning means,
just being open to anything, being open to whatever's in your path, being open to someone saying, oh, you should do this, or oh, this is this is really what you should be doing. You shouldn't be doing that. What? Oh, this is, and suddenly you've got so many voices and so many things. You've got all the things, and you're like, but what's the right? I don't know.
that's
There's
a
too
different part.
much.
That's a different part. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
everyone tune your ear. So this is where it gets a bit like, Jesus, this thing, this, and I'm talking about the
Yeah.
human package. It's a kaleidoscope of like fuckery of mass proportions, which is
Yeah.
beautiful. And so what I also heard you say, tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm not afraid to be wrong, is like learning. When it first said, I'm here to learn, and I felt like a real Braveheart energy, like, you will not take our, like, just the paint and the
Yeah.
whole, and to me, it had this air of like, it's got to be hard, it's got to be uphill, it's got to be kind of like a little bit of like, I'm here for everything, like, and
Mhm.
with that, all of a sudden you start talking about it, and the word should shows up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And anyone that, rolls with me, it's like should implies like a judgment, not good enough, like, there's just kind of some stuff around it. So
Or even sorry, as you were talking, I'm like, or even misunderstanding what learning is. Taking that learning and replacing it, or replacing what who okay, my brain.
no,
Um
take your time. This is like,
taking that learning and just deciding that's the way it should be, the should, right? And completely not taking into account what's going on inside of me, what's going on behind the clouds and the rain and the, right? Completely not even, it's just, yeah, I'll do it. Misunderstanding what learning is. Misunderstanding what learning is. That's what I want to
so
say.
here's the sentence. So what I was saying in this post that I hadn't gotten to, it's like, I want to talk about how this process of being here, I feel, is less about work, like kind of a burdensome trek,
Yeah.
and more about learning. Like, I'm going to go Forrest Gump on you there. Learning, like
Yeah.
not learned, like not learned,
Right.
because like the difference between, there's such a difference. The one is very humbling and one is raw. Learning is raw. Learning is naked and vulnerable and in process.
Yeah.
Like it understands something.
Yeah.
Learning says, oh, there is never a destination, because who am I to think that? Like, who am I to try and package this shit up and make it tidy?
Mhm.
But guess what? Human beings do not love the vulnerability of moving from one shell of existence, like a hermit crab, into the next one.
I hope they make that noise. I really hope they. Yeah.
If you're new to me, I like to make up sounds. It's like that part is like, we
Yeah.
rush that stuff
Yeah.
because we don't want to be attacked, or we're vulnerable to, it can feel like vulnerable to attack in the process of learning. Like if I admit that I don't know, or I'm learning, I always get this sense of like someone's going to onboard me and like take over. Why
Mhm.
do I think that? Because I have really learned experience in a way. Like, I don't know why I want to switch over to learned, but I have learned experience of what you said. Like, oh, you love me? Okay. And I just take the predator's hand and spend 7 years in a toxic, narcissistically abusive relationship that was so confusing and really undermined my trust with myself.
Yeah.
So it's some of those things, whether it's in this life, and let's get a bit weirder, or like some other spiritual whack DNA that we've carried forward from our great grandmothers or great great grandmothers or past lives or who knows what. But I'm here for all those potentials, not to throw more logs on the fire, but to just apply some grace, like some like allowance to be kind of like not know, and to what I want to say is kind of do it wrong, but we're not. Like, this is where it all falls away. We're not doing it wrong. There's no doing it wrong. Mm. What say you about that?
There is no doing it wrong. And that's what I think I am learning, is that every step I take now is sort of, I'm learning from myself now, and being discerning about what I take in and what feel, and I take it in drips and drops, and I look at something and then go, that's interesting, and I will consider it, and I've never done this in my whole entire life. I will meditate on something if I'm struggling with it. I've heard people say that and I'm like, oh, come on, really? In my head, I'm going, meditate on it, right? But I actually have done that now. I've actually, really considered something like a personal choice or a decision or something I'm, maybe it's some sort of whatever I'm considering. I actually will spend a couple of days and I will meditate on it. And I will say, does this feel right? Does this feel good for me right now? Can I do this? It's asking those questions. So the learning hasn't stopped. It just looks different. And it's also coming from a different place. Or if it's the compass is like, is this pointing to north? Does this point, if I consider this thing, is it pointing north for me?
So earlier you said something that I was like, all right, like I'll talk. So I get information when I hear people talk, not that I think it's the right information or like the best or whatever, but I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So it's intuitive information. I don't know where it comes from, but it's a part of what I do here. And when you were talking about like, I wish I could listen to it again, but it's like something about your true north. Like, I want to find my own compass. That's right. And I heard this very like show her like that even when she thought she didn't have one, she did. Like, and I was like, oh, okay, that'll be fun, but not right now. We're still, it was like, okay, we'll get there. And so here, did you mention, they're like, she'll bring it back. This is so funny. So
Wow.
as this unfolds, you're going to see that I get information and it's like, so to me too, I'm like, oh, this is okay. Let's see where this goes. Cause they're showing me, they're like, when she felt that, they're taking me back to the naturopath. So they're like, for all of you to think that you're lost when you have those moments of responding to your own pain and you're like, this isn't okay. Where else do you think you are other than in your compass?
Yeah.
This is where it collapses a bunch of arguments that we have with ourselves.
Yeah.
They're like, we're just gonna, what we'd love is to end some of the debate that you were ever lost in the first place. And that even in the mess of it, you're being guided by you. And yeah, guess what? You have the privilege of bitching and saying that you're not connected when you actually are. And like, there's no hurt feelings, like there's no hurt feelings,
Yeah.
because that's part of the experience. And so it kind of leads me down this path that always tells me, so what that's telling me is that we can trust everything. Like everything that led to the annoyance, the frustration, the buildup of feeling distant from yourselves and being taken over, and the noise, that was all on purpose, if only to evoke the enough that this has to stopness.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. That's a hard one. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Tell me more, because I'm with you on that one. That's why I'm like, yeah, let's talk. Let's answer that. Like I'm like, by the way, looking up to my spirit corner.
It's a bit of a hard pill to swallow, because it's like,
Yes.
because as I'm sure we all have made odd, not great choices in our lives, and made, stayed in a relationship that was emotionally abusive, and you know, how was that inspired? How was that?
Okay, because they
That
okay. It's so funny that you're saying that, because they were like, talk about the thing. And I'm like, I know what the thing is. And then you mentioned the abusive stuff, because you're like, so how is that? And they're like, see, she's just serving it up. Her people are your people. We're working
yeah.
together. And I'm like, I love how this works. Because one thing I learned, like when you think about, so here's the other thing. Michelle and I have like parallel soul lives for whatever reason. So our first relationship, same name, like first toxic, abusive, like narcissistic sort of thing. Same name, very similar situations. And it's, when we met, we were like, oh my God, what? Are you my best friend? Of course, you know. And I came to this realization recently, which was, it showed me that even in the most emptied of shelves, like think about how empty you were in that abusive relationship. And anyone that's had an experience with narcissism or narcissistic tendencies, or anybody in, you know, in relationship or in love with someone with mental health struggles, which is no joke. We're not here to like, you know, get on narcissists, because they're human too. And that's really difficult. That is a hard journey, and there's an impact. So we're on that end as well, which was on the emptiest of shelves. We give, we give, we give, they take, they take, they take. They're like this ravenous, the relationship seems to just consume everything off of our shelves. And yet, like even at the emptiest, the most emptiest of shelves, I was making decisions from bare shelves. But what part of me was making those decisions? Like, where was I making those decisions from? About, so mine, I was in England. I was isolated. I didn't have that much money. I didn't have any support from my family. You had your own version. It doesn't matter if you're across the world or down the street. Isolation is isolation.
Yeah.
And the shame of not wanting to admit where you're at or what you're tolerating and how you don't know.
Yeah.
And so we want to figure it all out ourselves. But I'm sure, like, you were making decisions that got you out of it.
True. Yes. And actually, now that you say that, I kind of go, that was probably one of the first times I ever went, oh, I I have strength somewhere here. Like I have, you know, I have sovereignty. I have sovereignty. And that was the moment I left. And the moment I said no. I said no. Oh, but please. Oh, but please. Oh, will you marry me? Here's a ring. Here's the whole thing. All the things. And I said no. And so that was a gift. That's a gift. And you're right. I think that's where that place, that's where it came from. It must have been. It couldn't have been anything else, really. Could it have?
Thank you for saying that, because guess what? How many years have me and many other women like us in that situation used that moment as the bottom, like our rock bottom?
Mm, yeah.
And we talked about it as rock bottom, victimized, justified, you know, like victims of emotional abuse, tired, had enough. And that has been carried for a certain number of years, or some people never kind of step beyond it, because that's tough. Because when it's the hardest and most isolated and loneliest time, it's normal and natural to see it as that. So to be able to reflect from a different vantage point, from a later vantage point, affords a new perspective, affords the opportunity for us to receive something. The what elseness is what I like to name it. Like, what else might that have been other than the very worst or hardest thing you've ever had to go through? And now you've just been like, gosh, like that was the first time I actually felt that I had strength. Was it in a shit ton of adversity? Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into that in a second. They're like, talk about the why. Well, fine, we'll do it now. Because it's appropriate. Why does it need to be so hard? Why do we need to learn? This is why it's so appropriate. Why do we need to learn it in a cornered animal position? Why do we need to learn from emptied shelves and, you know, all and it being hard? Why does it have to be so hard? And I mean, you've heard me say the next part, which is what dropped in one day from spirit. And I tried to argue with it. But like, what's your sense of that? And then I'll deliver what they said to me one day. And I was like, okay.
Why does it need to be so hard?
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to sound so cheesy, and so full disclosure, I know this
Cringe
sounds really
alert.
cheesy.
We hate being cliches.
However, in the place I'm in now, I am so thankful for it.
Why?
For the shit. Because I feel like when you're in that cornered animal, you are in that fight, flight, freeze. You are in that moment of I got to do something. And so I actually really like the person that went, no, I can't. I'm done. I love that person. So I have so much, again, here comes the cheese. I have so much grateful, like I feel so grateful for that person that said no. And I think probably that's the first no I ever uttered to anyone.
The holy no.
So had it been easy, I don't think I would have learned half as much.
Which
I don't
leads me
think I would
into
have learned half as much.
which leads me into the answer I got, which was really weird. And I was like, are you a joker over there? Like, sometimes I feel like I've got like a bunch of mafiosos like up like on my shoulder. They're like, what?
I love that.
because they even have hand gestures. And like, my dad did look, you know, it's not my dad, but I don't think it is anyway. Stripped down, who knows what he's like without a body. But the point is, it was in a session. So when I'm in sessions, I get answers right alongside them. And I'm just like, oh, are you ready for what I just heard? Because like, let's explore this. Which was like, why is it so hard? And I heard as clear as a bell, you know, I learned so good with joy. I was like, what? You don't learn so good.
It's so good with the joy.
Do you? Like, it was just like a real like, what? And it came with like a shoulder shrug, like, come at me, bro. Like, kind of like, let's argue. And I was like, and I was like, what? Hang on. You know, and I was like, it wants to say this. And I was kind of terrified, because how do you justify some of the hardest, worst, difficult, horrific, traumatizing bullshit that we have to experience? Like the unexplainable, that it doesn't make sense, the hardness of everything, in the rawness of the emotion that comes with the package. And it was like, listen, we're not trying to be dicks. It was just like, you just don't learn so well. You can learn through lots of things. You learn through relationship and the good, bad, and the ugly there. You can learn through joy. You just don't. Like, so you go, so here, it was like this little invitation. They were like, so here's you with joy. Next. Like, just, that was cool. Thanks. Like, and if we're even that cool with receiving compliments or receiving acknowledgements, they're like, brush it off and like, okay, let's get back to work. Like, as if that were a blip in the radar, as if it weren't something that we could indulge in or fully receive or acknowledge a little bit longer, to stay with the happiness, to stay with that, to say, what am I being asked to receive here? That I am, like these freaking windows that opens up that says, damn it, we're trying to like let this air in that says you are, of course, good enough. Your worth and value were never in question. Like, will you let this in? And we'll open the window to receive a few, like, we'll let the wind hit our face and take a breath and be like, well, this is nice. That is so cool. What a nice little reprieve from the hellstorm that is this human experience. And then we'll shut the window, back to work, because apparently the real work is in the, like, just that mental mindset of we're hardwired for expecting difficult and never even considering that joy is something, like, we have this spectrum, it's polarity, the good and the bad, you know, or the joy and the sorrow. Yeah. And everything in between is there to be learned from and through. And here's the thing. I mean, this opens up a whole other, the problem with me is I see things like a diamond. I see all these facets and I feel very compelled to cover all my bases just because hypervigilance. I mean, I don't know, but Like all my trauma folk out there, like, gotta cover up, gotta see all the things. But it's not about saying, well, you're only supposed to live in the, that one end of the spectrum. They're just saying you just don't learn so great through joy. That's all. Because things that are difficult, loss, disease, illness, things that really interrupt your flow need to get your attention. Like that's the intention is to get your attention.
Yeah, I almost want to say, who am I in this place? Who am I in this place? So the thing comes along, the whatever it is, illness. Who am I in this with this? Who am I? And it's almost like it shows you. Okay, again, so I'm getting things out. Like it's like that's your compass. Who am I in this place?
Yeah.
Right. So this is happening. This is shit. Okay, how am I going to show up in this?
So what you're speaking to is responding to what you notice,
yeah.
So if no one knows that this is how the game works, all we're going to do is see that it's proof that we're not good enough. We are wrong. We're clearly not meant to be here in a good way. Like the world's against us. And I think it's almost like speaking from a privileged perspective, having had the shit kicked out of us several different ways, only to realize we survived it and became more as a result. So then that does afford that luxury. But so holding the whole, like, and then there's some people that are like, no, man, the world is against me and I've got proof and receipts. And that's a very real experience. It's all available. It's all there.
It's totally all there, right?
Stepping on the
treadmill. And I think you're right. You mentioned privilege. I'm a white person. I'm a white woman. I'm come from a total place of privilege. I can't imagine being in not a place of privilege and having, consistent things being thrown at you consistently, and they just don't go away. So I think it's important to acknowledge that too, right? Like, and who am I in that place? Who would you be in that place?
That is a whole other conversation. I mean, like there's
Totally.
so many doors that open around learning and how we're being asked to learn through everything we're given. Our body, the color of our body, the gender of our body. Some people are asked to learn through the change of that gender, through the development of that, through the evolution of that, which is some of the realest, rawest shit that's here. Like, and but so we learn through relationship with ourselves, with other people, with every damn thing.
Yeah.
So yes, it can be exhausting. So then what's important? If we know that it can be, I just feel like there's an opportunity for us to look at our pace. Like, what are we telling ourselves? What sort of expectations are we putting on ourselves while we're here?
When you said pace, that's exactly what it's almost like you were reading my mind. I was like, slow down, get quiet.
Yeah.
And that's why I have been meditating that seems to be a grounding place for me. Everyone's got to find their own groove, their own way of slowing down. Again, who am I to tell you what's good for you or you? Like, but for me, I actually look forward to it. I actually am like, okay, I could, because I know that in that place, nothing can be touched. In that place, no one's there to put their hands on anything. That's just my place. And so there's something really comforting about that. So, even though I'm not in a constant state of upheaval and pain, and which I'm so lucky that I'm not, but if I at least have that grounding tool or centering tool, at least I think I can go to that when I'm in those places. So that's kind of where I'm at this point. Yeah.
I'm very empathetic and of the perspectives of people that are so overwhelmed right now with just in their face stuff.
Totally.
Having people in my life like this, that just can't catch a break. Right. And I wouldn't argue with them. And I think that there's this opportunity, like, what is the opportunity? And will you see the what elseness? beyond the surface story, you know, like I ask people to get curious about the layers of, there's layers to things. Like the initial story says, nobody likes me, or I'm unworthy, or, you know, my husband cheated on me, so that means whatever it means. So there's that surface story. And like to not accept the surface story, like accept it, but like be more curious about what else,
Yeah.
you know? And I always feel like that surface story, boy, does it pack a punch. And I feel like that punch is that gut punch, that emotional tidal wave that if we let that surface story hit us fully, it often hurts the most because it's carrying all the fear that we just don't want to be with, all of the stories, all of the blame and shame that we just don't want to be with. It can feel like all of it. We know that's not true, but it doesn't matter. We're just like, I don't want to be with any of that. Like that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to slow down and look at my life, because I was so afraid of discovering that it would be true. And like it is different for everybody. It being, oh, I'm a piece of shit. It must be because I'm the common denominator. Like we could fight that. It's me, you know, and because I'm the central character in my life. So everything moves through me. And so it must be. And I just felt like I couldn't survive that admission of like, it's like, yeah, it is you. Like, and guess what? It is. And like, this is where it all just goes, well, it is you. And, you know, under a different sort of filter, but it's like, yes, it is you. But this is probably one of the only times I'll use the word, but, because yeah, it is you, but not in the way that that surface story wants you to like set up camp in, which is that you're awful. It's like want to hold people and be like, it's like we're being showered down on by shit. And I'm like, just hold strong with me here. Just look at me, you know, eye contact. We got this, breathe. And let's feel that initial tidal wave of what we haven't been able to be with. Cause it's hard to face the emotions and the energy that we kind of just don't want to explore or express, and then wait for it. And like, maybe we'll have a big release and like, lose our shit, which will only part of us will say, see, that's just proof. See, that's just more proof. Like, look at how broken you are.
And knowing you'll come out the other side. Like I think there's something in that knowledge that the truth hurts, obviously. You know, I had someone sort of not say you're being like this, but you know, the implication was, you know, that you're being a little victim-y. And it wasn't in those words, but it was like, wow, message received, right? And I was like, and I had to literally go, oh my, like I
okay,
literally
tell me more. Oh my, what?
Oh
was
my
that not
God.
Okay that they said that?
It was true.
Okay, that's right.
And so you know, so I had to sit in that little soup
when you say that little soup, let's talk about this. When you said that little soup, what's that little soup? Oh my God, it's true. I'm being a little victim-y. Sorry, I get very advocate-y about this, but like, yes.
No, but it's true.
What's wrong with, and see how, I got to sit in that, like as if it's not welcomed.
It wasn't welcomed because I hadn't considered it. It was, you know, I'm a terrible friend because they're doing these things, or I'm a terrible in this relationship because it was always sort of looking outward. And so when that was presented to me, it was like, oh, there's my part in it. You know, my part in it. And it wasn't an awful thing, but it was just swimming in that like trying that coat on of going, oh, I guess, yeah, in some respects I am. It doesn't negate that they've done shitty things, or it doesn't negate any of that stuff. The two can be true at the same time.
Now that's a mouthful that people are like, what? We are hitting all the bases. This is like the greatest hits of the foundation work, right? Like, it's like just,
it is.
So there's two things. Like, yes, you've blown the lid off of two things. One is, please make room for the victim.
Yeah.
If we don't, like, like mainstream spirituality has become a beast like where nothing negative is allowed, where the victim, like we victim shame ourselves. Oh, I can't be a victim. How do you think the part of you that was actually victimized feels? You will never be right. You will never be at peace in yourself if you negate or step over or neglect acknowledging that part and giving her it's 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. I don't know. Find out, what does that part of you need to just feel like it belongs, that it belongs, that it's not separate from you, that it's having a fucking experience. And you not allowing it is you not allowing you.
Yeah.
So us wronging that drives me crazy because it throws more logs on the fire of like being against and turning on our own hearts innocently. We don't even know we're doing it. So thank you for saying that, because it's like, oh my God, I can't be a victim. None of us want to be a victim, but like when we feel victimized, what are we left with to do about it? And what we're told is like, push it away, stuff it down, deny it, because that's not okay. Would you say that to a child that felt that way? Like I think most of us wouldn't, because we'd be like, no, that's a kid. Well, guess what? Our parts are eager, they're innocent. And seeking the innocence in things helps diffuse it and helps us nurture it back into the whole.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, trying to find wholeness in the whole mess is just very truthful for me, because it is a mess, but there's wholeness in there. Like I just feel like the strive or the drive in it is to bring back home parts that feel disenfranchised, that feel set aside, that feel victimized in their own right. Not only with the experience that happened. So not only do they feel victimized, do we, parts of us, feel victimized, but then it gets double victimized by not being as savory. Like, you're an unsavory part. You go here, and we don't talk about you. We don't deal with you. And we certainly don't want to be called you. So thank you for like letting everyone's victim have a voice. Like, like,
Of
I think
course,
there is such a place in the process for what I call like a victim statement. What do they call that in the courts?
I think they call it a victim statement.
Impact. A
Impact
victim
statement.
an
That's what it was.
impact statement.
Yeah.
That it's a form of reconciliation that is very official out in the judicial world and whatever, like reconciliation, but a part of it is like giving that impact statement, letting parts and people say, this is what this is like, this is what happened, and actually doing this alongside other parts of us. Like you said, the optimistic part of us that knows that we're not truly a victim, or maybe even rises, we're never a victim to anything, and we're going to take some very true, broad, soul-based perspective of like, all is okay and we all get along, right? There's that end. And then there's like the real world, like, is raw, and like and I got shot, or I got abused. And so the both can live under the same roof, which should make us feel crazy.
They totally can. Yeah.
Only when we don't let them have their own unique place to say, yes, part of me feels like this, and part of me knows this too. So I know it hurt, and I know that there's a place for this victim part. And so that's where the but goes away, and it's like they are. And's
a powerful, right? It's a powerful word.
Yeah. It was probably on an Oprah episode that she's like, take out the word but, because every time you say it, you cancel out the first part of the sentence. And I'm like, yeah, I never forgot that. Yeah. So it's interesting to play with when we talk about, every time you hear the word but, I always get curious. Does an and fit here, or is it a but? Sometimes I've left the but because I'm like, no, it's a definite distinction. It's definitely like this, and it's not an and. It actually wants to cancel the first part. So I'm like, I can't think of a good example, but there was like, nope, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to let it lie. But yeah. Where did we end up? Where are we right now?
I don't know. I think we've landed in the learning and the unlearning, and
what we're left with.
We're left with still learning, but maybe from a different place, or maybe from I don't know.
You know what I'm getting? I'm getting that it's just like, you guys you're in the learning. You're really seeing that it is a process. It is a practice. It is an ever flowing river of opportunity.
I love that it's a practice.
Yeah, me too. I like that too. It just wants to take the heat off of it. And the river metaphor I like as well. Yeah. Because it kind of brings in the dial metaphor. Like, when or if you have the luxury of like taking a break, please do. Like, what if you could weave rest in between some of these whoppers of learning sessions? Because in your industry, we didn't really talk much about it, but you're an OG. Talk a little bit about that. Like, you help kids with learning issues.
Yeah, I work with kids with learning challenges, neurodiverse learners, and
Yeah.
just specifically with literacy. But I think um, comes with that the social emotional impact of learning with living with learning disabilities. And I think that um, it still comes back to giving kids the tools to tune into who they are, what they need in that moment, and because they're a lot of them don't want to learn, so that's kind of the opposite. They're like, it's too hard, it's just too hard, and they shut down. So it's
Mhm.
like trying to navigate that piece and try and, so that's it's a different kettle of fish. um and just trying to show them the value of learning, and not just learning words and reading and writing and spelling, right? The value of learning who they are as people
In the process.
in the process.
And that's
So
what makes you really good and amazing at what you do, is because you weave that wholeness in the whole mess. Like, that we get it's messy, we get it's hard, and it matters. Like that.
yeah, I mean, it's simple things like making mistakes. I mean, you wouldn't think so, or maybe you would, I don't know, but for my kids, I call them my kids, I should call them my little nuggets. Anyway, they're pretty cute. But when they make mistakes, that's a big fucking deal for them. They do
Mhm.
not, at all expenses, I am not going to make a mistake,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not going to let her see that I'm making a mistake. So actually last week, she was doing her perfectionist thing, and I love her so much. And I said, can I be really honest with you? I looked right in her face and I said, every time you or any one of my students make a mistake, I get like so excited. And she's like, what? Like I was crazy. And I said, because that's where the learning happens. That's where we learn. And that's how, which brings me back to what we just talked about, right? Like that, then I know that you're learning. And it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. And she looked at me like I was crazy, but I could see her shoulders just got a little taller. She just got a little bit taller as I told her that, right? And if I can give that to somebody, and if I can give that to myself, and if anyone can give that to themselves, oh my God, right? That's the learning. That's where it happens. It's magic.
So you've completely shifted perspectives. Like,
I know, right? Ah. And
which is,
as I'm saying it, I'm
I
like,
know.
uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah, I hear it.
I know.
I know. I know.
It's the worst and the best. It's like, oh, I hate myself. I love myself. Oh God, I hate, like, just
Totally. Yeah.
that I can say one thing and then all of a sudden see it so differently by only being asked to go through the thing that I also know to be true. Like, you almost stepped, if anyone was paying attention, when she stepped into the teacher mode, she may as well have stepped into the great universal creator or like great spirit themselves. It was like, it was like, I get so, do you see it? I get so excited when y'all
Yeah.
make mistakes. That is how spirit feels about you.
Right?
I know. I hope you watch this and you're like,
Oh my God. I
that's
know.
how they feel. They're like, we wish you guys knew. Like, that is, and I know we're a big eye roll. They're like, you're big, "Oh,
Totally.
mom, like,
Exactly.
dad. And yet they're just like, whatever, man, you can do whatever you want. But like, we're still not gonna be excited. We're still gonna be excited. And like the weird, corny parent, it's like, I think you're amazing. Like, keep going. And when you think you're doing it wrong, you're not. Like, just
Yeah.
that, if that is being held, if you're holding that for your students, does everyone appreciate also the Russian doll that we just revealed about, like, you and I showed up as like the tiny doll, the one
Yeah.
that's like, we don't know. And then we built it up to the next one. And like, I felt like we went a few dolls out
You
to
did.
address all the inner dolls, all those ones that live inside of us. And when you got to that very external one, it was just so true in your body about the learning process, and offered not just the kids in your imagination that you thought you were talking to,
Yeah.
but this is where Spirit says, God, we hope you're listening. Like, we hope you're listening from us through you, and that you are that. Like, look at how you can be the student and the teacher, and it
Teacher.
all lives under the same roof.
What an amazing circle that was. Right?
Yeah.
I can't even.
I
Yeah.
don't.
No,
Every
that's
time I'm like, I
amazing.
love being here. Like,
I
I'm just like, I love being here. This is those moments where I'm like, bring on the next one. Like, sorry, no, I'm going to hang out in the joy for a minute and like, just like receive that. Cause it's so clear, like just watching you, like, I just get to receive that too, like a reminder, like we're not doing anything wrong. And even when we think we're our most lost, we're still being guided. There's still, but guess what? Here's what I don't want people to do. I don't want people to try and be in it and on it. Like, that's
Yeah.
actually where I think the struggle is. When you're so aware, or you become more aware, and then awareness becomes this Olympic event that everyone's
Yeah.
like, I'm more aware than you. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm more aware. I see more. It's like, oh my
Exactly.
God,
Just
who's
be in it.
this?
Just be in it.
I'm telling you, it's not always what it cracks up to be. If you've ever read Yertle the Turtle, like, have
Well,
you?
I mean, even my students, I will say, I don't even
Horses.
care. Like, I actually don't even care that you get it right. I
Mhm.
actually don't even care that you spell that word correctly, or I actually don't care. I said, you know what makes a good speller? This is my definition. For me, what makes a good speller is that you're thinking about your spelling, and you're not afraid to make mistakes, or you make mistakes even though you are afraid. Like, you just do it. You just do it, and you go through the process, and you think about it, and you go through that process. That's a good speller. And I think that's a metaphor for anything, really.
Yeah, because it frees up. Like, from that perspective, what does that offer us? Because it just goes to show the container or the soup we're simmering in, which
Yeah.
is based on more is better, always like profit is king, always got to go and do more and
Yeah.
better and go seek for more awareness. And it's just, we're looking for trouble in some ways. So my hope is that we relax, we be here in all of the moments, but like, don't go looking for trouble. Like, it sounds so funny, but like, don't take this healing game so seriously where it does more damage. Like, you and I have been through many journeys, and we will probably be on this horn talking again about the body journey we've gone on, things like that.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
well, insert
That's a
diet
whole other
culture,
podcast.
insert all of the, all the
That's a
things.
whole nother
That's a
one.
whole other thing. Um, but like, to be exactly where you are, as if that is the only place you're supposed to be. Not that it's good enough, not that it's like a consolation prize and that you're giving up, or worse, resigning. Like, this energy of resignation of like, oh, I guess I'll be here. I mean, by the way, everything I say, I'm also like, well, move through the resignation, like, be in resignation. Like, that's the next classroom, I guess. But again, it's not to be like, so rub your nose in the very shit you just took, you know? You see what we do? Anyway, the point is, it's like, I prefer your perspective much better, because you're like, yes, and it's very flourishy. And I'm like, but like, this is the polarity, I guess, but it's like being where you are. And what if your only job is to pay attention to the best of your ability based on the bandwidth in which you are navigating? Do you see the grace that we need to allow for the shitstorms that we're in? It's like Don Miguel Ruiz saying, do your best, and people being like, oh, that sounds easy. But he's like, your best is going to shift and change based on the water if it's calm water, well, your best is going to a whole lot different. It's going to look a lot different than if you're in the rapids,
Mhm.
without a friggin' floaty.
Yep.
So why can't we need to like weave in the grace of that, like being humbled. There were like 3 words that came one day. It was like healing, humbled, human as fuck. Like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is it.
Yeah.
And it's and to just be where we are, allow that grace and respond to the best of our ability to that which is drawing our attention, our immediate, like the next step that arises.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're here to exhaust ourselves in the process or put upon more than we need
No.
to, when the fact that we're just here, like I always get that from beyond. It's like the fact that you guys are here, like breathing on the planet, like in a body, like just participating, even just like looking around and seeing all the moving parts and like engaging in shit and like, oh, being a feeling, breathing human being, like bowing down. Like they're just like, that is the most badass thing that any beings in this universe are doing. Like what you're doing here is like, it's a thing. And are we all meant to be these deep, meaningful, purpose-based, I'm going to change the world, just myself? Like, we're also sold that. It's like some people are, I know that some of us are just here to be and breathe and be a presence, like, to be experienced instead of like do stuff, make shit. Like, there are people that are here to make shit. I just know there are people here to be shit. You know what I meant? Not shit.
Totally.
Like,
Totally.
to be some, to be them,
And the
to
ability,
be.
the
Yeah.
ability to meet yourself wherever you're at. If you're in the being or the doing or the, resignation, the you just took a shit and you're looking at it going, ah, right? Like all of it and just meeting yourself. And so I think I just want to say slowing down and just slowing down and being with yourself and just, yeah, just meeting yourself exactly where you are. Exactly where you
And
are.
yes, and then adding this piece, because I just heard this. It's like everything you just said, and ask this, and how can I love me here?
Mm.
You know, part of me's just like, fuck, why'd you got to put that on? Why'd you got to go do that to us? Like, yes, you
Oh.
jerks. Like,
What? What?
like,
What?
what? You want to get, you want a piece of it? Just
You want a
kidding.
piece of me?
But it's like, I'm gonna throw this in there. And can you love yourself there? Huh?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, damn it. Why do you got to do that? Like,
Oh,
isn't that
imagine
it?
asking yourself that every time you sat
How the
down with
hell
yourself
can I
and
love
say,
me here when
how
I've
can I love
just
me in
taken a
this place?
crap on the bed and it's
Exactly.
everywhere? Oh my God, I did an Amber
Exactly.
Heard.
You did.
Anyway. Oh, that's very controversial. Anyway, did she, didn't
I mean,
she? In the comments. Maybe they're just kidding. That is actually a whole other episode, that whole thing, just symbolically. But anyway, I digress.
yeah.
Yeah, like how can I love me when I'm making so many mistakes? Like, what if we are just making a shit ton of mistakes? What if we are so blind? What if we are lost? What if we don't get it? And then it just keeps saying, well, what if you just ask that question? Like, how can I love me? How can I dare to love me here? Ugh, it's like gross in a way, but it's also like, it's not going anywhere. Like, it's not gross, but you know what I mean? Like, it just confronts that, damn it. Like,
God.
oh, I just want to feel like, it's like, well, you
Yeah.
already feel like crap. So
Exactly.
uh,
That ain't leaving. You just how can you love the shit in the bed? This is the thing, right? It's there. It's not going to change the fact that it's there. It's just what can I do? How can I love myself here in this place with the shit in the bed? I don't know what's with the shit in the bed thing.
are we talking like specifically to
Where
Amber
did
Heard?
that
This
even
could,
come from?
oh,
I didn't shit the bed. Did Amber though?
she did. Anyway, yeah, I mean, we could talk about a lot of stuff because that's opening up other doors. And I'm like, easy,
Yeah.
brother, whoever that is. And he's like, all right, I'm just saying, like, there's a whole other thing here about like unconditional love that like we hold for you guys, but you don't do it so well because you already know it. But anyway, we just like to weave it in so you guys, but that's the hard part. They're like, you're annoyed. He was just answering why I'm annoyed.
Yeah.
I get annoyed because it's like, it's like having something around you that loves you no matter what. And you just like, you're shut up. Like, just shut up. Just,
I'm sure my students do that. Oh.
like, why? You're really giving me not a lot of reasons to hate myself.
Exactly.
And like, just like, actually, like, that's what it kind of gets down to. It's So he's like, just throw that little piece in. We'll do a whole other episode about it later on. We'll see you later. Bye. Like, this little jabron. I got a jabron spirit over here.
I love it.
Uh,
I love it.
anyway.
That was the best conversation ever.
You.
Love it so much.
Yeah, I think we landed on some stuff. Hopefully we cleared the air a little bit for ourselves. I think I feel a lot clearer. Thank you.
I do. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
it's so fun. I hope you come back. And you know, like, there's a lot to think about. And these episodes are really meant to instigate. I mean, I've always been told I was an instigator ever since. It was like I always knew how to kick shit up, not bad things, but like inspire people to do things that were really fun. Essentially, that's how I used it. But it can be used for evil as well. But it was more like instigating thought, instigating, people to step out a little bit. And just notice, I always just say, like, whatever rang your bell in this, I probably should have said this in the beginning. It's like, guess what? We're making this up as we go along.
As we go along, yeah.
HumanAF. It's in the title, which is to pay attention to what rings your bell in here. And that's your intuitive, your people, your people saying, hey, flick. They're like flicking you in the forehead. Hey, pay attention to that. Like, hey.
Yeah.
And anything that either opens you up and go, oh, I needed that, or like constricts, it's like, get curious about it, and meet us in the comments section. So these episodes are going to be posted in a group called Radical Acceptance on Facebook. The link will be in the description for you to join and like continue the conversation underneath in those threads. And Michelle and I can also show up there and continue the conversation as needed. But these aren't to just lay a bunch of shit on people and be like, bye. Like, see ya. We had some things to say. Bye. Aren't we great? It's like kicking our heels up.
Yeah.
We did our deal. Bye. So it's like there's something about community, and I know that there's two perspectives here, and we have, just to open it up and like what impacted you and what it also evoked, because this is where it opens up. It's like, oh, but what about this? But what about that? Boy, do we need more of that, because then that opens up. Let's go explore that right here, and let's keep it going. So thank you for being a part of this thing. I'm curious to see what happens with it.
It's going to be exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love you. Come back again.
Love you.
Okay.
Anytime.
Bye.